When the narcissist comes crawling back, what is going on? Why do they keep doing this to you? Why do they keep hurting you, betraying you, and then coming back and confessing their undying love to you? What is going on? Why is everything so unstable, so distorted, so all over the place? Of course, that's just it. They are mentally and emotionally unstable. They are disordered. That's why they do act in disordered ways, in a way where it's difficult for you to understand, because with you were seeking a relationship. You were seeking a connection. They were not seeking that from you. They are not seeking that from anyone. Yes, sometimes it may seem that way when they go off their new source. It may look like they've found a connection or a relationship, even a marriage or children. It may appear that way. But I can tell you that all they're looking for is a source of supply. All they're looking for is someone to take care of them. Emotionally, financially. Or someone to be their emotional punching bag. That's all that they want. And that's why that's exactly how they treat you. And that was exactly how they were treating the new supply before they chose to come back to you. You didn't get to see that side of them with the new supply, because they want you to think that it's just you. It's not just you. They're like that with everyone. They don't just suddenly become that way and start showing their wild side around you. Nothing about them is exclusive to you. They are like that with everyone. That is their personality. So they're around you, they use you as a source of attention, validation, control, a sense of superiority. Because deep down they feel very insecure. So they have to have that control over you. They have to put you down. They have to make you feel inferior if you're not going to validate the false image. And initially we do validate the false image. The problem is we don't get anything back out of it, because it's not even real. So we don't get anything in return. We're just giving all of our energy, our attention to this void that can never be filled. And it's never going to give anything back to you, because it's not real. And once you start to catch on, once you start to figure out this is all an illusion, it's an orchestration, they plan and coordinate the elements of the situation to produce their desired effect. Once you catch on to that, once you see through it, now in their minds there has to be a problem with you, because there can't ever be a problem with them. In their minds they're perfect, they're faultless, they're flawless, they can't do anything wrong. And they've been living this way their entire lives. They're quite comfortable laying in their own filth, acting like there's nothing wrong with them. They've neglected themselves for a very long time. And this is why once you get around them, once you no longer have any more energy to give to this facade, this illusion, then what happens? You begin to feel the toxicity. It begins to affect you, traumatize you, because that's what's really there underneath it all. That's what they have beneath their mask. And once you catch on to that, then they have to devalue you. They have to put you down. They have to make you feel like there's something wrong with you. You're not good enough for the facade anymore. Well, really, it's you don't have the energy to sustain it anymore. That's why you don't see the false character, because you don't have the energy to sustain it. With these narcissists and their false character, it's like putting another coin in the machine. It's like pulling the string on a wind-up toy. You have to keep pulling it again and again to keep it going. And after a certain amount of time, you just run out of energy. You can't do it anymore. You run out of money to keep putting the coins in the machine, to keep it animated. And that's how their show must come to an end. And then you start to see the real person underneath the mask. They turn against you. They put you down. They make you feel like there's something wrong with you, when you're just unable to give your energy to it, because you're starting to see the cracks in their false image. You start to see that it isn't real, so you can't act that way towards them anymore, because you know that it's fake. And from that point on, it's never the same. But as long as they can get you to believe that there's something wrong with you, as though you're not good enough, as long as they can devalue you and make you believe that you're unworthy, or you just have to do more, you have to run endlessly on a hamster wheel in an effort to please them, as long as they can make you believe that, they will still stick around. They will still keep coming back to you because you're still a source of supply. As long as they can get you on that same wavelength, as long as they can get you in agreement with what they're trying to put out to you, then they will keep you around as their source of supply. But once you no longer fall for that as well, once you use the grey rock, you observe, you don't absorb, you respond, you don't react. You don't believe in anything they say to you anymore, anything they display to you, whether good or bad. Then they've got to cut you off because you're no longer a source of supply. You're not supplying them with attention, validation, a sense of superiority and control, which causes them to feel very insecure. It makes them feel inadequate around you. And that's when they've got to cut you off. They've got to find a new source. Somebody who doesn't know them yet, or someone who's going to believe in their lies and illusions. And initially there will be the idealization, the love bombing, followed by the devaluation. None of it is real. It's all fake. They're just looking for attention, validation, control, superiority. Because their emotional needs were never fulfilled as a child, so now they've got to have that external validation to prop up this false self, to make them feel in control when otherwise they would feel inadequate, insecure. Because that's how they really feel deep down. They're just a scared, vulnerable child inside an adult's body. They've never grown, they've never developed emotionally. And that's why you observe their behaviors, a lot of it is very childish and immature. It all revolves around attention seeking, attention whoring, or these immature, degrading comments towards you. Because they've just never grown out of it. They never had their emotional needs met as a child. And that's how they're still stuck in this state. And they will always be that way. And it's never going to be any good for you because you want a connection. You wanted to connect to someone, but you cannot connect to them. They are emotionally unavailable because their emotional needs were not fulfilled as children. Now that's how you just can't get anywhere with them. All they're going to do is drain you. They're going to leech off all of your energy. They're going to demand all of your attention. And they can just never leave you alone. They need you to be there as their source of supply. And what happened with you will happen with a new source as well. There's always going to be this cycle of abuse, the love bombing, devaluation, discard. Once they've devalued and discarded the new source, or if the new source has figured them out, then they come back to you. They either come back to you or they entertain another source, whoever they think is going to be more susceptible to it. They'll come back to you if they think you're still going to be that source of supply for them. If they still think that you're going to give them attention, validation, control, superiority. But if you let them back in, it's going to be very damaging for you. And typically, the more times you let them back in, the worse it gets. Because that's just it. I mean, they're emotional. They're seeking power and control over you. And yet it's all self-serving. It's just for themselves, for their false image that isn't even real. So it's not going to go anywhere. It's only going to result in destruction. Because it's just all about themselves. And a relationship is meant to be the way in which two people are connected. And that's why it's never successful with them. But they will try and come back to you if they think you're a sucker, you're a fool. Then yeah, they'll come back, they'll entertain you. If they think you're going to believe in it, if they think you're going to go along with it. But if you make it clear to them that you're not going to tolerate that anymore, if you don't let them back in, if you set that boundary, if you draw that line, if they know that they cannot have their way with you anymore, if they know that you're no longer going to be their little puppet, you're no longer going to settle for the crumbs while you're putting in all of the work, then they're not going to bother. Because that's what they want. They want to exploit someone. They cannot be in a relationship. They have to exploit. They have to get far more than what they're given. They can't give anything. It may look like they're giving something sometimes. They're not. Everything they get, everything they learn, everything it seems that they're about, none of it is internal. None of it comes from inside. These passions, these interests, these ideals, none of it has anything to do with them as a person. And Sam Vaknin has said this as well in his videos. The covert narcissist gets everything from the outside. They have nothing inside of them. It's a void. So that person you thought you knew, that person you thought you fell in love with, they don't even exist. And even when they're angry or upset, that's not really them either. All that's really there is just a scared, vulnerable child that has all of these defense mechanisms. That's all that really exists. Everything else you see, it isn't even real. It isn't even them. It's something they've seen. It's something they've taken from someone else. And that's why if you do let them back in, if you believe in it, it may seem good initially. I'm not going to lie. It may seem good. It may seem like you're having fun. Just like in the beginning. But it's kind of like you're taking the blue pill. You're going into the matrix. Because it's not really real. It's like you're watching a movie. You're in a fantasy. It's not really them. It's not really what they're about, because everything for them comes from the outside. It's all based on what's going to get them attention, validation, a sense of superiority and control. They are completely fake. They will be anything for anyone if it's going to get them attention and a sense of belonging. They will just go along with the crowd. They follow trends. As for us, we're real, we're true, we're authentic. We'd rather be hated for who we are than loved for who we are not. And that's what it is to be real. The narcissist will be anything. If they see a benefit for themselves, if they see a way to gain power, to exploit someone, they will be anything. They're chameleons, they're shapeshifters. None of it is really them. And that's what you've got to understand, because if you do take them back, you're going to experience the same pain and misfortune all over again. It's not going to stop. It's not going to get better. It's never going to be any different with them, because they cannot connect. They cannot pair bond. Because they abandoned their true selves a long time ago in childhood. They were made to believe that they weren't good enough, so they got rid of themselves. They created a false self to perform for their parents, to be seen as something, so that they could get that validation. And this is the problem with a lot of children today. A lot of young adults is that they will change themselves completely just to please their parents, just to get that validation. But by doing that, they sold their souls. They're not even themselves. They have no inner truth, no inner passions or interests. There's nothing to them. As for myself, I was always seen as quite a troublemaker in childhood. I was always seen as a bit of a nuisance. And actually, that's typically what my parents called me a lot of times, is a nuisance. Because I was more just being myself, rather than trying to be who they needed me to be. And that's how I ended up being scapegoated in my family. That's how it happens. But these narcissists, they mold themselves into anything. They just follow trends. They go along with the crowds. And they will just tell you whatever you want to hear. They will show you whatever they think you want to see. Whatever they think is going to get them that attention and validation. Whatever's going to get them that supply. And that's the only reason why they will call back to you, is for that supply. That narcissistic fuel that props up their false self and keeps it going. Because otherwise, without the supply, without sources to fuel them, then they fall back on their true self. If there's nothing to prop up this illusion, and that causes them to feel inadequate, it triggers them. That's how you then see them lash out at you. That's what causes them to start devaluing you. Because you're not validating the false self, you're not propping up this illusion, this false image. So then they turn against you. They're falling back on the underdeveloped child self. The result of their arrested emotional development causes them to feel inadequate, inferior, insignificant, worthless. It causes a narcissistic injury, and then they rage. They turn against you. They lash out at you. Because that's what's at the core of them. It's a scared, vulnerable child that is not emotionally developed. That's what you're seeing when you stop going along with the illusion. And of course, I mean, at some point you have to stop, because you're pouring out so much energy, attention, money, resources into it. It's draining the life out of you. And you're not getting any support in return. They're not helping you, and you're just doing everything for them, to the point where you can't even take care of yourself. And this is what happens to us as sources of supply. They just run us into the ground, to the point where we can't even sustain our true selves. And we become something else. We become something completely unlike ourselves. Because we're giving them constant emotional support, and we have no emotional support for ourselves. But this is what you will consistently see among narcissists. So when you don't validate this perfect illusion of them being faultless, flawless, not doing anything wrong, not being anything wrong, when you don't validate it, they feel very insecure. They fall back on the underdeveloped child self, which is something they don't ever want to be, because they were taught in childhood that it wasn't good enough. So then it causes a narcissistic injury, which is a defense mechanism, and then they rage at you. Then they want to fight you, and a fight for their lives. They'll do anything to just destroy you, discredit you, crush you, sabotage you. And on a large scale sometimes as well, they'll go around and smear your name to everyone. Because it's either that, or they have to fall back on their underdeveloped child self, which is something they never want to be. Because then they feel inadequate. And that's what this is all about. They need a source of supply. They need your validation. They've got to have control over you. They've got to feel superior to you, because otherwise they feel inadequate. They just feel like that helpless, vulnerable child again. And that child is very paranoid and distrustful because it's been hurt. It was neglected by its parents. You can show some compassion for them from afar. Just don't get too close, because they will hurt you. They will lash out at you. They will harm you, because it's either that or they feel inadequate. But this is caretaker for the rest of their lives. They need supply. And whoever is going to be their supply is going to have a very hard life. It's going to be a very miserable experience for them. Initially, it might be great. It might feel like it. Sorry about that. Signal cut off as I got closer to the sea. But yeah, they're going to drain the life of that person. They're going to absolutely ruin them financially, emotionally. They're going to ruin their health. And in the end, they're going to blame them. They're going to say that it's all they're doing, they're all defense mechanisms to defend. They're doing, they're all defense mechanisms to defend and protect this underdeveloped child self. Defend and protect this underdeveloped child self. That was a big. Sorry about that. I have no idea what is going on with the signal. Signal's really bad today. But yeah, everything they're doing, they're all defense mechanisms to protect against this underdeveloped child self. Because they don't ever want to feel that way again. They don't ever want to feel inadequate. So it's all a defense mechanism. And even when they become like chameleons, shapeshifters, they will just become anything. Where they mirror you, they reflect your own virtues and ideals back to you. Again, it's a defense mechanism to avoid rejection, abandonment, possibly exposure as well. That's all that it is. And it's the same thing when they're devaluing you. Again, it's a defense mechanism. Because otherwise, if they feel rejected, they feel invalidated, they then fall back on their underdeveloped child self, and then they feel inadequate. They feel like a bad person. To us, of course, it seems like an attack because they're attacking us. They're harming us, but they're seeing it as defense. They're not seeing it as an attack on you. Unless they are malignant narcissists, then they may see it as an attack, but usually they're seeing it as defense. Because you just being you and not validating them, and instead you're just standing in your truth, that feels like an attack on them. It's an attack on their false character, on their false, and that's how they then turn against you. And this is how they're so hypersensitive to criticism. Like any little thing could set them off and make them lash out at you. Again, when they come back, it's only because they still view you as a source of supply. They view you as someone who will abandon themselves, become self-unaware, abandon their sense of self, their identity, abandon their lives, abandon their health, everything. And this is how it happens. This is how you lose everything, your health, your finances. Your entire life revolves around them because they become your life. They view you as an extension of themselves and you feel attached to them. And so everything about your life, your worth, everything revolves around them. Because that's what you have to do to even be around them, is you have to become unaware of yourself. You cannot have a sense of self around a narcissist. Because your sense of self exposes them. And that's how they have to manipulate you. They have to manipulate your emotions. They have to get you in your feelings. Or in a low vibration, in shame, guilt, desire, even pride. They have to get you thinking in that way, maybe out of your ego, so that nothing is real. Because if anything is real, if you are connected to truth, to your soul, this then exposes them. It causes them to feel rejected. If everything doesn't revolve around ego, they feel rejected. Because they don't really exist. They don't exist in reality. They only exist as it pertains to their ego. And even then, they have a fragile, dysfunctional ego. So if it's not about importance, superiority, grandiosity, all these types of things, then they feel invalidated. They feel rejected. If you're just trying to have a conversation with them, you're trying to connect to them, they feel rejected by you doing that. In their minds, that means there's something wrong with them. If you're trying to get them to be vulnerable, if you're trying to connect to them, because this is what they were taught as a child. They were taught that by them being vulnerable, by them wanting love, connection, there's something wrong with them. It's meant to be all about ego, performance, being the best. This is how they were taught. And so they don't exist in the real world. They're not real people. A psychologist, Ross Rosenberg, has said, they're not real. They don't really exist. They're a figment of your imagination. I'm sure many of you will say you felt more than when you were actually alone. It feels like you don't exist when you're around them, because that's just it. You have to be unaware of self. You can't be self-aware. You can't have a sense of self when you're around them, because your true sense of self exposes them, and it exposes themselves to themselves. This is how it works. So yeah, when they're coming back to you, it's all about their ego. It's not about connection. It's all about what is going to make them feel important, significant, relevant, superior, validated, in control, attractive, intelligent, powerful. That's all that it's about. That's all they care about. That's why everything is superficial, because it's trauma. When a person is traumatized, they have unresolved childhood wounds. It can only be superficial. It can't go deep. It can only be on the surface. It can only revolve around their ego, around performance, a sense of importance. Any type of vulnerability or connection, it triggers them. They already feel rejected. When you try to get them to open up, when you try to connect to them, it makes them feel inadequate. They want you to continue going along with the false self and the illusion. That's the only way that they can feel relatively good about themselves. With vulnerability or connection, or just anything to do with being, anything to do with our flaws or imperfections, or anything that we've done wrong, they can't go into that space with you. They can't connect with you on that wavelength, because that's something they've never reflected on or attended to. They don't have any experience in that, and they don't want to start now. So everything has to be superficial. And, you know, when you're dealing with a narcissist in public, I mean, if it's just an acquaintance, someone you're dealing with for a moment, you could just go along with it. Just compliment them. Just make them feel like they're this larger than life character that they want to be. And, you know, if you're paying close attention, you can usually tell, you know, what they want from you. They may want you to tell them that they're wonderful, they're amazing, they're intelligent, they're sexy. It's whatever they feel makes them worth something. That's all that it is. But underneath it, it's not real. It's not something that means anything to them personally. It's not something that they're interested in or passionate about. This is why you try asking them questions, you try having a conversation with them about it, they'll ghost you. They'll be gone, because they can't go deep. They can't connect on that level. It has to be just them telling you how wonderful and amazing they are. And you can compliment them on the surface level only, because it's not real. They can't expand on anything. They can give you a one-line sentence about things, they can't go deeper. They can't do it, because it doesn't go deep. It's only on the surface. And that's why when you try and dig deeper, it's a problem. It causes an injury. When you try and challenge them, you try and ask them more about it, then they feel offended then. It angers them. But it angers them in a way where they come back and they accept your challenge and they would have proved to you, no, you're wrong. That they do know what they're talking about, that they are about what they're about. That's not what they do. Instead, what do? They manipulate you further, or they gaslight you, or they devalue you. They just make you think that there's something wrong with you instead of accepting your challenge. They just try to silence you. And that's how you know that it is fake, because if it was real, got cut off going again, sorry. But yeah, that's why I often ask you in pretty much every video if you have any questions. Because I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying. And also, other than what I say in my videos, there's so much more that I know. I've been researching this now for about 7 years, so it goes deeper. It's not just surface level with me. There's so much more to it. And there's so much more to me than what you see in my videos. I have so much more to my character. There's so much more to my life. As I'm sure it is for many of you. And yet, they weren't interested in that with you. It was all superficial. It was all about your appearance, your money, your job, your connections, your status. Well, it was about what you could do for them. It was never about connecting. It was never about your true passions, your true interests. It was never about what makes you tick. It was never about what really matters or means anything to you. Because nothing means anything to them. It may seem like it does, but it's all fake. It's just to manipulate people. So yeah, when they don't come back, it means that you have won. It means that you have defeated them. It means that they no longer see you as a fool, a sucker anymore. They know that they can't pull that with you anymore. They can't have their way with you anymore. They can't fool you, trick you, deceive you. They can't make you believe in a lie. They can't get you to fall for their future faking. Because that's all it is. It's a fake future. It's never going to be real. So when they don't come back, it means that you have won. It means that you have defeated them. And don't see it as though they don't want you or you're not good enough. They want you to think that way. It's like you're not good enough to be their supply. It's because you're smarter. You're wiser now. That's why. And that's why they will go off and find someone else who's more foolish, more naive, more unaware. And that person too will eventually wake up. They will see the truth. Or they will just waste their entire lives with something that isn't even real, doesn't even exist. So yeah, that's how it is. And it's the only reason why they want you back is for supply. Some sort of supply. Whether it is your attention, validation, control, a sense of superiority, benefits, conveniences. They're looking for a caretaker. Could be a financial caretaker, an emotional caretaker, just someone to take care of them. And that care is one-sided. It's not about growing together, and that's how you're left with the short end of the stick. And as for them, it doesn't fulfill them anyway. They're left feeling even more miserable, more resentful, feeling worse than before they did that to you. Because it's not treating the core wounds. It's just trying to conceal it, cover it up, which perpetuates it. It makes it worse. So, yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about what they do, where they go. They're living in a fantasy. They're not real. If they were real, if they were really that person who you wanted them to be, rather than it just being manipulation or deception, lies or future faking, then they would just be that person with you. They would be that person with you now. If that was really them, if they were real. They weren't, because they weren't that person. They were just manipulating you to reflect back to you your own virtues and ideals. And that's why when you push them, you pressure them, you confront them on it, they get very angry about it. It causes a narcissistic injury because they haven't got anything to give. They're lying to you. They're fraudsters and they know it. And that's why they hate it when you challenge them on anything. Because it's only surface level. It's intended to cover up a lie. Whereas for you, you're real, they have something to devalue, to take value away from. They have something to discredit, to take credit away from. They can do that with you because you actually have something. They destroy your real true self to prop up a facade, an illusion. For me exploring the city, but I knew I had to get on here today to make this video. Even though I'm not in the best condition, I mean, it's been a long day, been around a lot of people. People chasing me around all the time, trying to get my attention everywhere. Of course, it's very draining. It's very draining being a narcissist source of supply. Because of course, it has to be one-sided. You're real, they're not. You're genuine, you're sincere, and they're exploiting that from you. They're exploiting your genuineness, your sincerity. They're exploiting your authenticity. Because they don't have that. They are corrupt. They're damaged. They died a long time ago. They're not real. And this is what's so traumatizing for us, is to be around someone who's not real. And we're being vulnerable, we're opening up, giving our true self to someone who's not real. It's very damaging. And that's why we must now take the time to heal.